Thank you. I'm an entrepreneur, a wellness expert, a healthy living advocate. And how I got here took a little longer than that of the average entrepreneur. And that is because while I had the calling and felt that passion, I couldn't take that leap of faith and make that change. Because for most of my life, I equated change to failure. This idea has been with me since I was a loud, spirited child growing up in Puerto Rico. For as long as I could remember, I wanted to be a singer. And not just any singer, I wanted to be a superstar. I mean, I couldn't stop singing. I would beg my parents to give me dance and piano and music lessons. What I didn't know at the time was that my parents couldn't afford to support this dream of mine, and that my really conservative community couldn't see the idea of a young woman being part of show business as a respectable career for a young woman to follow. But I didn't care. I knew exactly what I wanted to be, and nothing was going to change that. Then one day, when I was about 10 years old, my dad asked my two sisters and me what we wanted to be when we grew up. And of course I said I wanted to be a singer. He turned to my mother, pointed at me, and said, "We're going to have to give up on that one." Yeah. Don't get me wrong. My dad is a good man. And I'm sure he thought he was doing the right thing when he was trying to discourage me from a career that is known to be unpredictable and unstable. I don't think he realized how deeply those words touched me. And that's the thing with parents, right? Sometimes what they say and do touches in ways that they could never imagine and affect us, sometimes for the rest of our lives. But at that very moment, little loud, spirited Jovanka decided that she was going to do anything and everything in her power to become a singer. Nothing, and I mean nothing, was going to change that. Anything other than following that path and sticking to that plan until I found absolute success would be considered a failure. It did take me another 10 years, but eventually I found a way to take my own piano lessons with the 90-year-old nun at the local convent. The kind that would walk around with a wooden stick, hitting your fingers where they were at the wrong place at the keyboard. Yeah, that did not last very long. But eventually I signed up to the music program at the University of Puerto Rico. I was a member of the university choir. I eventually found another piano teacher. I was on my way. And then I developed calluses on my vocal cords, effectively ending any chance I would ever have at having a beautiful, long-lasting singing voice. My gut, my will was telling me to keep going, but my body was saying, nope. It is time for you to change that path and find a new one. So I did. I was still very passionate about music, but this time on the business side. And that's when I decided that I had to go really big. So I enrolled in the music and business department at New York University, and I moved to this big city to follow in this new path. And oh my God, did I take New York for everything it had to offer. I started to wonder and realize that change, even if it stems from failure, may not be that bad after all. I mean, I was still a very loud and very spirited 23, 24-year-old, and I was enjoying this new path. I was carving out a new future. So I think change may be great after all. So I explored, I studied really hard, I played even harder, I met boys. One boy in particular. He was pretty special. I'd say he was amazing. And he swept me off my feet. We became best friends and confidants and lovers. We exposed each other to all these new experiences. We learned a lot from each other. And he eventually became my husband. But like many marriages out there, the marriage did not last until death do us part. It failed. We failed. And this one felt like an even bigger failure because I was failing society. I was failing my family. I was failing his family. I was failing him. I was failing myself. And it was while I was trying to find healing that I really reluctantly started to redefine this idea of failure. I thought, if a marriage ends before death do us part, does it still have to be a failure? We were bigger and better people than before we met. Our lives were richer with each other in them, even if we were no longer married. So with time and some serious effort, we found a way to remain friends and family and colleagues. This man is, to this day, one of my strongest supporters and dearest friends, and he is, in fact, sitting in the audience today. But all the while, I was working really hard. I had a fancy job working with even fancier singer-songwriters like Beyonce and Billy Joel. I climbed the corporate ladder, eventually making it to a big fancy title of VP at a large multinational corporation. But I was physically and emotionally out of whack. I was feeding my body average, not so great foods, and I was feeding my mind average, not so great thoughts. And that's when my body gave me another kick in the butt. First it was an ulcer, then it was colitis, then it was fibroids the size of my fists. I was stressed out, I was ill, I was very scared, I was angry, and all the while I was feeling like a failure. And it was this experience with disease that forced me to rethink failure in a more tangible way. Because I could change careers, I could change relationships, but my body, this is a different story. This is the only one I have. I couldn't abuse and wreck it like I would a car and then pretend to go get a new one tomorrow. I had to change my path yet again, but this time, for the first time in my life, I had absolute control over those choices. I can choose what I put in and on my body, and that will make the difference between failing yet again or triumphing. And this became such a passion that I started to read and devour books and tapes, taking courses, researching, using my own body as a guinea pig. I so wanted to find a solution and to heal that I ended up trying dozens of alternative treatments. Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, acupuncture, yoga, detoxes, juicing, I tried it all. I learned in my own very scientific way. I tried a few things, I tested them, and then I tracked what worked and didn't work. I learned that what you feed your mind and your body has the ability to heal you, or it can destroy you. So I took from each of these traditions and pieced together a lifestyle that helped me heal. I learned quite a lot, and I loved this process that required constant changing. My 10+ year journey towards disease and back helped me understand a lot about myself, but also about the world around me. I started to question all of these common sense ideas that we somehow ignore or take for granted. Take, for instance, the foods that we eat. In the Western world, we eat a highly unnatural, nutrient-stripped, packaged, processed diet filled with man-made and genetically modified materials. In the US, here in the US, we believe almost blindly what advertisers tell us. We think that protein bars and vitamin water are health foods. But live foods, fruits, vegetables, seeds, sprouts, are considered garnishes or add-ons to big floppy pieces of meat or something that comes in a box. The foods that carry the vast majority of the dozens of nutrients that our bodies need for optimum health are rarely consumed by most people in the Western world. And most people in the Western world are dying of highly preventable diseases at an alarmingly high rate. Yet somehow we don't believe that diet has anything to do with that. We don't think that we're failing ourselves. Or do we, and just simply don't care until it's too late? Common sense tells me that if I put cheap gas and low-quality oil in my brand new Mercedes-Benz, this car is not going to last me that long. Why on earth is it so hard for us to believe that the same thing is not going to happen with our bodies? Yeah, we blindly believe without questioning, so I decided to stop doing that. Just because someone tells me it is good for me to eat doesn't mean it is. If I offered you a plastic apple, would you eat it? Of course not. It's artificial. Yet we eat foods with artificial ingredients listed on the packages all the time and in high amounts. And then when something goes wrong, it's a lot easier for us to elect to have surgery, to have your chest split wide open, to fix a heart problem, before embracing a simpler solution like changing your diet. I don't ever want to have to make that choice, so I decided to embrace simplicity with respect to my diet. And that meant eating a plant-based diet. Foods that my grandmother would recognize as food, with ingredients that I could potentially grow myself. So once again, I changed my path. I left my seemingly cushy job to become a healthy living advocate. I started to write, to share my story, and to teach. I teach people to take the power back. No longer should you blame your genes or your destiny or your childhood lifestyle. You are born with natural curiosity and with the ability to acquire knowledge and resources. We cannot be spoon-fed any longer. We must start acting today if we want to extend our longevity. I teach people that their bodies are like luxury vehicles and the only home that you have to live in. And if this home crumbles, it'll cost you greatly to bring it back together. And truth be told, you wouldn't vandalize your brand new luxury Mercedes-Benz on purpose. Yet we constantly attack and sabotage our beautiful vehicle, imperfect as it might be, with our food choices, but also with our thought choices. So the choices moving forward have to honor this new way of thinking. This new way that tells me that I can live without a manicure, but I cannot live without my liver. So I'd rather spend my resources keeping my liver strong and clean and healthy before I worry about the exterior. And amazingly, when I started to do that, my exterior started to change. No longer did I need to spend that many resources on hair and nail and beauty products because I was feeding my body all that it needed to look and feel its best. So yet again, change that led not to failure, but to amazingly positive outcomes. Today, I recognize that there are many, many pieces to this big puzzle, and that healthy living is a lifetime commitment that will require many, many changes along the way. And these changes are so awesome that I could never again equate them to failure. Today, I am a wellness expert who inspires you to change because I do believe and I am proof that it is a good thing. This is who I am today, and I think it's fabulous. And I may have to change again. But if I do, I won't be afraid. And I won't feel like a failure. Because the avenues of curiosity and knowledge have opened up and have led to freedom and wisdom and a highly fulfilled life that it's only just beginning. Thank you.